Hey, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Ticket to Ride from Days of Wonder. Ticket to Ride is a 2004 title. This is an older game that has been around for quite some time, designed by Alan Moon from Days of Wonder, like I mentioned already, and it's a light, accessible gateway game in which you're going to be trying to create as many tracks as possible across this map in order to score as many points as efficiently as possible sooner than your opponents do. Along the way, you're going to be getting points for literally placing down tracks on the board. You're going to have this little indicator here that shows you the number of points you get for placing down trains. The longer the route, the more points you get, but additionally, you're going to have these ticket cards you're trying to achieve. Specific tickets connecting different routes. Connecting Boston to Miami will give you 12 points. New York to Atlanta will give you 6 points. Connecting any of these areas on the board, any of these regions, as you gather these tickets, which you'll start the game with and have the opportunity to gather as you go through it, these will all give you points. Seattle to Los Angeles, 9 points. Duluth to El Paso, 10 points. You're going to be constantly gathering these ticket cards, getting more points for building out a larger and larger network across the board. So, for example, let's pretend we have these tickets over here. You're going to start the game with some of them, and then additionally, throughout the course of the game, there's 3 primary actions you can take. You either can place trains down onto the board as an action, you can draw more ticket cards as an action, and lastly, you can draw train cards from over here, this pile on the side. You can draw train cards into your hand, either from the face-up cards or from the top of the deck as well. You'll have the opportunity to draw these train cards, but you're going to, whenever you want to take a rainbow train, you can only take a single train card. Otherwise, you can take 2 train cards. One of the nice parts of drawing from the top of the deck is you may get lucky and get rainbow trains, which are effectively wild, without having to, take only one of them. You're going to be doing those actions across the course of the game in order to lay out routes and connect tracks in order to get as many points as possible, and that is basically it. That's the game. 4 basic actions: placing down trains, 3 basic actions: placing down trains, drawing train cards, refreshing tickets in order to build out a network as much as possible and get as many points as possible. But let's just go through a few sample turns just to show you how this would play out. Let's pretend right now I have Toronto to Miami, and let's pretend I'm the blue player. So I'm currently trying to connect Toronto down over here to Miami, which means I want to try to get a little bit of a pathway going on. But I also have Los Angeles to Chicago, which means if I can connect this to my central hub down here, and if I can connect this down to Chicago, you can start building a network down there. Chicago is, Los Angeles is over here, Chicago's over here. So if I start building this Toronto pathway here and continue it that way, and then lastly I have over here, the last one is I have Vancouver to Santa Fe, again giving me a little bit of an option over there. So you're constantly trying to connect these train cards, building out a route that will get more and more complex as the game progresses, because what starts off as a single destination with the goal being to link to a single destination very quickly becomes building out a hub, building out a streamwork across the map, being mindful of the fact that many locations only have a single route between them. If I want to get from Toronto to Chicago, likely the most effective way is to hit this pathway over here, but that requires having 4 white trains or wild trains, and if somebody else gets there first, well then I have to take a roundabout way. Some other pathways will have 2 routes, or two or multiple routes, depending on the map you're playing with. Ticket to Ride is a game that has a lot of different maps you can play with. In the case of the base game, you only have single or double lanes over there as far as connecting things, but that gives you options as far as other players trying to get there before you, and other players trying to potentially sharing routes with other players, or them getting through there before you. So again, going through that sequence, let's pretend we're going to Toronto to Chicago. Let's try to go ahead and draw some cards. I currently have no train cards because, you actually start the game with train cards. I currently have none for the sake of this. We're going to go ahead and draw some cards, and I'm going to start by drawing a single train card. Another player will go ahead and take a card. We'll have this down over here. I'll draw 2 from the top for my next action. Maybe for my third action, I draw some tickets to see if I want to be able to keep any of these tickets, which ones I will be able to keep, which ones I'll be able to add to my hand and to utilize to potentially expand my options as I choose other routes. For instance, Montreal to Atlanta works well with Toronto to Miami because we already have those areas kind of linked off together. They'll have a lot of overlap, so maybe we keep that ticket. Past that, you're going to be continuing to draw train cards, continue to slowly put down routes, building down a slowly expanding network in Ticket to Ride, being mindful of the fact that other players, and for example, when we go ahead and put down 4 trains right over here, we will have, immediately as we do so, we'll look over here, and a 4 route over here gives us 7 points. So we'll move our marker up 7 points from 14 to 21, meaning you're scoring points in-game for the various routes you're building, but you're also scoring points as you get these tickets, and then by the time the game ends, when somebody runs out of trains, you're going to go ahead and score up all the points and see who won in Ticket to Ride. That's the basic game. 3 core actions: grab trains, use those trains to build out a pathway, and make sure you have tickets to ensure the overall structure of what it is you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. Which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. This game is incredibly easy to table. There's 3 actions, that's all there is. There's 3 actions and a map. When you start adding other Ticket to Ride variants in play, which there are other Ticket to Ride variants, both expansion maps as well as standalone games, they all introduce a little rule here, a little rule there. They tend to be very easy to pick up, but for right now, we're focusing on the base game, which just has 3 actions. 3 actions on a board. This is the rulebook over here. We have a 2-page spread, 3 pages, 4 pages if you include the cover, but you don't need to because that's just flavor text. We have 3 pages and art. There's very little going on here as far as the complexity. Playtime tends to vary depending on the player count you're playing with, but tends to run roughly around the hour range. As far as reviewing the game, as far as my opinion on Ticket to Ride, Ticket to Ride is a game that I first picked up, I want to say in 2012, maybe 2011, shortly after I first got into the hobby. It's a game that is often recommended as a solid gateway game, and I think it is a solid gateway game. The accessibility of the game is off the charts. This game is incredibly easy to teach, it's incredibly easy to play, it's incredibly easy to dive into, it is very, very easy to get into, but easy isn't good enough in a game. You want more than that. And the game is rewarding. It's compelling to start building out those tracks. It's compelling to build up a hand of train cards. And there's different types of people and different ways they'll approach this game. There are those players who will grab a bunch of train cards and immediately claim those routes as fast as possible before other players get to them. There are other players who like to build up a handful of cards, a handful of options, so that they can have all the trains they need and pivot and react to what opponents are doing. Sure, you might not get that first route, but you will be able to adjust your strategy around what the board currently looks like instead of a developing board. So there's pros and cons to the way you approach this game. There are the players who love to just go through the ticket cards, try grabbing as many ticket cards as possible, giving up your turns of actually building out your infrastructure, but instead having a heavier focus on actually getting the right tickets, so you're not worried about getting just a vast spread across the map. You're very targeted in your approach. Just grab whatever you need to do and get those ticket cards as fast as possible into your hand, making sure you get the right tickets as opposed to just having too many tickets. Then there are the players who play brutally. They're the players who will sit there and aggressively take the spots you need. You need this one connection point, and there's already a player who's currently over here, and you're obviously looking for this connection point between these 2 spots. Well, then go ahead and red bops on in and grabs those 2 spots over there in order to block you, even though that spot is only potentially tangentially worth it to them. It might be worth it to them later. There's definitely connection points, but there are the brutally mean players. There are the casual players, there's the gateway players, there's the ones who are looking for every single Ticket to Ride variant to have all the different ways you can augment this game, or even just a little Alvin and Dexter, Alien and Dinosaur, little expansion you can pop onto the map. There are multiple ways in which you can approach the Ticket to Ride game, making it very variable and accessible as far as the type of game it's providing. It is a gateway game that is rewarding to play out. It is easy to teach, it is easy to play, but also, because as we get to the spin of things, also it is lighter. All those things I said are definitely true, but it also ends up being a game that there is a limited depth to the experience. There are a few ways you can approach the engine, there are a few ways you can approach the strategy of the game, but at a certain point this game comes down to only 3 possible actions. Only 3 possible actions you can take, and those actions also will have a degree of luck as far as the things you're going for, the way the cards come out, the way they suit your strategy, even just the tickets you draw. The player has to go through 3 rounds of pulling tickets to get the right tickets that complement their strategy, will have a much harder time than the person who draws 2 tickets that they happen to have their network already connected to. Ticket to Ride is very solid in what it's doing. It's an excellent game that has spawned, I don't even know at this point, 20 offshoots of expansion maps and variants and fan-made expansions and tons of different content for this game. It spawned an entirely new line of Ticket to Ride Junior, and then a new gateway-friendly line of Ticket to Ride like San Francisco and London or UK, or all these different options as far as tons of different maps. If you look through Ticket to Ride on Board Game Geek, I would not be surprised if you found 40, 50 listings of different degrees of Ticket to Ride content, because it is a game that has held up well. It's like one of those few board games in the board game space that has, like, 1 million plus copies sold on the box, so I think it's actually like 3 million plus copies sold. This is a popular game that has been around for a long time and has remained popular for a reason, with the trade-off that it tends to focus on being gateway friendly. It is a lighter experience, which means if you're walking to this hobby knowing it does in other games, this might not be a game that resonates as strongly with you because the decision space is slightly lower. So overall, Ticket to Ride is a game I am a fan of. I'll give this one a 3.5 out of 5. It is a very solid game. It's an excellent gateway game. If I'm ranking it as a gateway game, I'd rank it even higher. Ranking it for my own personal taste, every single time I play Ticket to Ride, I enjoy myself. Every single time I play it, I have fun. When I first got into the hobby, I didn't just have Ticket to Ride. I bought every single expansion, lining up an entire shelf, multiple shelves full of just Ticket to Ride, because I loved the experience that much. But then also, as I grew in the hobby, as I played other games and I found other experiences, one by one I slowly whittled my collection down to the last man standing, Ticket to Ride Nordic, which lasted for another few years before eventually getting rid of that one as well. In any case, Until next time. Wait, recommendations. We do recommendations here too. If you're looking for other game recommendations, other things that I think are solid next steps from Ticket to Ride, if you like the game Ticket to Ride is giving you, but you're looking for something a little bit more, I think Thrones and Taxis is a fascinating game. I believe Rio Grande Games. Thrones and Taxis is a fascinating game that gives you the same basic satisfaction you get from Ticket to Ride, with I think a much deeper experience. And then similarly, Airlines Europe from Alan Moon as well. Maybe from Days, I don't know who the publisher is, but let's go with Airlines Europe from Alan Moon, from the same designers, Ticket to Ride. That game gives you the same route connection that you have over here, but with an additional degree of stock management that really adds a new gameplay mechanic that might be interesting and appealing to you, especially as a next step game from Ticket to Ride. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.